Well, hello there. I'm Gemini.
Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. Today, we're diving into Taylor Branch's Pulitzer Prize-winning history, Pillar of Fire.
To get started, just listen to this stunning statement from the book's preface. It really gets to the explosive heart of the era it covers. It zeroes in on this just incredible, unprecedented power that came to be when, of all people, school children became the moral leaders of a movement.
So the book zooms in on a very specific time frame, 1963 to 1965. And Branch's whole argument is that these weren't just, a few more years of protest. No, these were the peak years. This is when the movement intentionally created a national crisis. They forced this head-on collision between the idea of American liberty and the really brutal, everyday reality of segregation.
And when you look at events like the Children's Crusade in Birmingham or Freedom Summer in Mississippi, the key thing to understand is that these were not just random, isolated incidents. Far from it. They were all part of a very deliberate, sustained campaign. A campaign designed to do one thing: force a public showdown, a reckoning, between the moral authority of the movement and the entrenched power of the state.
So all of this brings us to the book's central, really challenging question. How do you actually create change? How do you get justice when the system itself, the laws, the courts, the whole political machine, is the very thing standing in your way?
Okay, so let's get into the core idea here. Pillar of Fire makes a powerful argument that the answer, it wasn't just about changing hearts and minds. Let's be real. That approach had been tried for decades, and it just wasn't working. It had failed.
No, the real answer, the thing that actually moved the needle, wasn't moral persuasion. It was strategic pressure. The book shows that progress only came from this relentless, calculated pressure that was applied directly to the systems built to keep inequality in place. See, this wasn't about bad people. It was about a bad structure.
The book gives us this great metaphor. Think of the system of inequality as a locked door. You can make all the moral appeals you want, and they did. Dr. King made private pleas to President Kennedy, for example. But those were just ignored, deflected. The door stayed shut. It was only when they applied sustained, visible pressure, we're talking the marches, the arrests, the constant disruption, that they created a full-blown national crisis. And that is what finally forced the lock to break.
Okay, so let's dig into the mechanics of this a little bit. The book really details this incredible clash of forces, right? The movement's strategy on one side and the state's reaction on the other. It's almost like a physics of social change.
So on one side, you have nonviolence. And it's absolutely crucial to understand this wasn't about being passive. Not at all. It was a calculated, strategic tool for disruption. You see, King believed that seeing unearned suffering was the fastest, most powerful way to get the attention of a nation that was, frankly, trying its best to look away. It just made the injustice totally impossible to ignore. And then, on the other side, you had raw, state-sanctioned violence. The book's descriptions from Birmingham are just gut-wrenching. Police dogs, high-powered fire hoses used on children. It shows a system using pure brute force to keep things exactly as they were. The movement created this moral crisis, and the only answer the state had was physical force.
And here's a really critical point the book makes. The federal government was not a reliable ally. In fact, it was often part of the problem. Branch reveals this consistent pattern of, institutional hesitation. They were always weighing the political calculus. You have the FBI, which was actively hostile and surveilling Dr. King. It all added up to a government that consistently prioritized order over justice, often at the expense of citizens' most basic constitutional rights.
Now, as you can imagine, this intense, non-stop struggle came at a huge cost. It wasn't just physical danger, it was exhaustion, trauma, and it created these deep, painful fractures inside the movement itself.
Yeah, not everyone was on board with the strategy of nonviolent confrontation. Take Malcolm X, for instance. His sharp critique really highlights the deep ideological divides that were growing under all this pressure. A lot of people were starting to ask, is it really moral or even effective to just keep enduring this violence in the name of freedom?
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, Pillar of Fire makes it crystal clear that just passing new laws was only part of the battle. The real, lasting change, that required fundamentally altering the incentives and the power structures holding the whole system up. Because at the end of the day, a law is only as powerful as the will to actually enforce it, right?
So the book leaves us with this really challenging question to reflect on. If sustained pressure is what it takes to open the door to justice, what does that tell us about the door itself?
Understanding this history isn't just about looking at the past. It's about recognizing the real, gritty mechanics of how institutional change actually happens. And a lot of the time, it's not through polite consensus, it's through crisis. For the full long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description. If you enjoy these explainers, please subscribe and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.